Build Your Business listeners. This is Matt Reynolds, your host for the podcast, and you are listening to what we are calling the legacy episodes. And really, these are the pre-episodes that really led to this podcast, the Build Your Business podcast. This is really my life's work and my brother's life's work in building your business. And so they were originally published in the Barbell Logic podcast as part of the Principles or Coaching Success series, but really touch on similar topics to the Build Your Business podcast: how to improve your productivity, how to set and accomplish your goals, deprioritize urgent tasks, to focus on what is most important to you, and most importantly, to become a better person and leader and business owner overall. I'm proud to bring you these podcasts. Again, many years of life's work, several years of podcasts, and several decades of business ownership. Hope you enjoy them and learn from them. You're listening to Barbell Logic,
the podcast where we talk about what it means to experience strength
and how you can use simple, hard, and effective strategies in training and nutrition to improve your life.
It starts with meeting you where you are right now and finding lasting solutions.
Welcome to the show. You're listening to the Barbell Logic podcast. This is another coaching success episode with me, Matt Reynolds. I'm your host, where we talk about how to be the best coach you can be from a business perspective. And I'm going to try to teach you all of the things that I've learned over the years. Not that I've got it all figured out. I'm still excited and love to learn. So the topic I'm going to talk about today, you've heard me talk about a few times before. I'll actually give you some of those places that you can kind of do a deeper dive on this, but it's specifically, I want to talk about the tyranny of the urgent, or why the urgent is the enemy of the important, but specifically today for coaches. We've talked about this before for our clients. We've talked about it for just in general, but I want to literally talk about how this works with coaches for the coaching success. And so there was an article I wrote a couple years ago called The Tyranny of the Urgent. We'll put that in the show notes. It's on the Barbell Logic website. You also want to check out episode 278 of the Barbell Logic podcast in the Principles series with my brother Chris, called Overthrowing the Tyranny of the Urgent. And a great companion episode to this, which is not on this specific topic, but I think is very synergistic, is episode 423, which is on bringing order to chaos. And so today I want to specifically apply this Eisenhower Matrix to coaching. If you haven't heard of this before, Dwight Eisenhower, obviously a famous general in World War II and then president of the United States. He had to constantly make difficult decisions. He had to constantly think about where his time and his effort were directed. And so he designed essentially a matrix, a 4-quadrant matrix, to try to decide where to put his time and where to put his effort. And I think that this is really important for us as coaches. And so a big part of setting and meeting your goals as a coach or anywhere in life is to avoid being bogged down by a culture of constant urgency. And I think today in the United States, we live in this culture of constant urgency. We're trying to keep our head above water all the time. But the problem is that most of us don't understand the difference between urgent stuff and important stuff. And so once we do, we'll recognize that the urgent is almost always the enemy of the important. Urgent things are actually very rarely important. There are urgent and important things. We're going to talk about those. But the most important things are almost never urgent. And the most urgent things are almost never important. And so these are constantly in battle with each other. And so this really comes originally from a 1967 booklet called The Tyranny of the Urgent. Charles Hummel speaks of the tension between things that are urgent and things that are truly important. Most of us sacrifice important things in order to react to urgent things. We're in reaction mode all the time. But Hummel warns us that our greatest danger is letting the urgent things crowd out the important. And so just a very quick lesson today. I want to talk about the coaching decision matrix, this Eisenhower matrix that he used, and apply it specifically to coaching. So there are 4 quadrants, right? Quadrant 1, and sometimes these are listed in opposite order, but it works better for my discussion to do it this way. Quadrant 1 is not urgent and not important. Quadrant 2 is urgent, but not important. Quadrant 3 is urgent and important. Quadrant 4 is not urgent, but often the most important. So let's walk through those. So that quadrant 1, not urgent, not important. What is the goal of that quadrant? Not urgent, not important. The goal is to get rid of it. Right? These are things like social media, probably the single biggest time waster for a coach. And along with that, things like video games or binging on Netflix and listen, I don't think any of those things are inherently wrong, right? Like I'm usually watching a show with my wife. I'm watching The Bear right now and it's great. It's a service industry. Like it just wrecks me, right? But I don't binge it. Like we watch one episode a night, maybe 3 nights a week, right? That's it. It takes me a while to get through it, right? But most waste in coaching is also not urgent, not important. Let me explain. So Andrew talked about this, about eliminating waste. So things like long commutes for online coaches. I can't tell you how many times I've had conversations with my coaches that have slow internet speed. They won't pay the few bucks more every month to improve their internet speed, often 10x. And what it does to their dollar per hour, that's crazy, right? Inefficient processes, old computers. You know who you are if you listen. Old computers. Get yourself a new computer. You don't have to go spend $6,000 on a MacBook. You can buy a really nice MacBook for $1,000, $1,200, or not a MacBook. Get something that's, not Apple. But if you do this full-time online, there's no reason to be using a computer that's 9 years old. That's actually waste. And waste is not urgent and not important. And then, again, which goes along with the social media side, is the distractions and notifications while trying to do important work. These things are things that have to be purged and expunged from your life. Some people would actually say like, oh, there are certain shows that I watch or video games that I play that actually bring me a lot of value. And I would argue that would make it not urgent, but important, right? If there's something that you watch or something that you do in your free time, or you go fishing or whatever, and that brings you a ton of joy, just because it's not specific to coaching doesn't mean it's not urgent and not important. It might be very important what you do, but you have to really, I think, look at your schedule with a fine-tooth comb and go like, how many hours am I spending just sitting on my phone, scrolling through Instagram reels, right? In bed, at night, on the toilet, right? Whatever. In general, the not urgent, not important, we want to get rid of, right? And then we have the urgent things, but they're not really important things. It needs to be done. It's going to actually have to get done, but it's actually not really important. So for those, the general rule is we want to delegate those at a cheap wage or automate them if we can. So delegate or automate. These are cheaper wage things. So things like if you're a busy business owner coaching at a relatively high dollar per hour, you should not be grocery shopping. Should not be grocery shopping. You should be using a grocery service. I think Andrew and Nikki talked about this in one of the last podcast episodes. You should be, since COVID happened, I don't think I've walked into a Walmart, right? That stuff gets delivered to my house, right? So mowing the lawn, you shouldn't mow your lawn. You should hire somebody to do that. Doing your laundry, hire your kids to do that, right? Cleaning the house in general, right? I mean, I would argue that like having the house clean is actually an important core value to us, the way we live, but I don't need to be the one that cleans the house. Like that's something that I can delegate out at a cheap wage, whether that's to my kids or to their friends or to my housekeeper or whatever, right? Cooking, especially breakfast and lunch. Now, again, if you love to cook and I love to cook a really nice dinner for my family, I would argue that is a highly important, non-urgent thing. But often having to think about food, having to think about cooking breakfast and lunch, having to order DoorDash or go through the drive-thru or do the thing, like that leads us down a path that is often urgent because I'm hungry and I need food, but not really important, right? Cleaning the gym. If you own a gym, you shouldn't be cleaning your gym. You should be delegating that, right? So anything that are these tasks that should be delegated or hired out for a cheap wage, these are things that are urgent and not important. And then there's other things that often we still have to do, but we want to automate this or delegate this as much as we can. This is not quite as easy, but it's things like phone calls come in. You don't know if a phone call comes in. You're like, I need to take the call, and it's urgent because the phone's ringing, but it's not to you. It's not really that important, right? Or certain emails come in, emails, and they need to be responded to, and there's some urgency in the response. And especially you think for me as CEO, if people are waiting on an answer from me, then often the business sort of stops. And so I need to be able to respond to those emails or Basecamp notifications. And sometimes those things very much are important. So the things that are urgent and are kind of weighing over you, like, oh, I really need to get the lawn mowed. Oh, I really need to go get groceries. Oh, I really need to run to the post office. Oh, I really like whatever that. I need to go deposit the checks at the bank. No, like that's what your kids are for. That's what college kids are for. That's what you pay people to do, because your time is worth more than that. You don't have to do that, right? Number 3, things that are urgent and important. Urgent and important. And I would argue that most hardworking people, most hardworking coaches spend more time here than anything else. If you're a hard worker, and you know if you are, right? Most people are either wired to work too hard and be a little bit more of a workaholic, or the opposite, they tend to be a little bit lazy. So for those of you who tend to be a little bit lazy, it's the not urgent, not important. It's the video games and the Netflix and the porn and the crap you shouldn't be doing. And you should like purge that from your life is the problem. But if you are an overworker, you usually spend too much time here in the urgent and important. It's important, so they need to be done, and they're urgent, right? So here are some of my tips and tricks. Number 1, schedule it and Pomodoro it with deep work. Like, be locked in deep work. This is why I break down videos. So online coaching for me is urgent and important, right? Like, I get up every morning, there's a due date, I get that stuff done. Emails for me are often, and there are certainly some emails that are not important, but obviously I'm getting emails or notifications on Basecamp or whatever that are both urgent and important. Schedule it and I Pomodoro it, right? So I get up 4 in the morning or 4:30 in the morning and I get right to work. There's no distractions. My phone stays on do not disturb the entire time. Not that anybody would actually text me at 4:45 in the morning, right? I knock that out as fast as I can. The key is efficiency here, so that I can work on my business instead of just in my business. This urgent and important work is working in the business, which takes away from working on the business. So number 1, you can schedule it, Pomodoro it. You guys know what Pomodoros are. If you don't look, we've done a previous episode on that in principles as well. Or you can actually delegate this work as well to those that you trust who can do it better. As you grow a business, you hire people who do better at their job than you could do at their job. And this is not a low wage job. This is not a wash the dishes, do the laundry, mow the lawn job. This is I need a head of customer service job. This is I need a COO job. This is I need a new head coach at my gym job. This is experience stuff. So it has to be somebody that you trust. It can be delegated. It should be delegated over time, but it has to be delegated to the right people. You can't just literally take a system and take some person off the street, some college kid, some whatever, just hand them the list and say, do the thing. Like, they wouldn't know how to coach. They wouldn't know how to do these things. And so either you schedule it and Pomodoro it and learn how to do it efficiently, or you delegate it to those who you trust can do it better. So it's delegation at a higher wage. And this allows us to work on our business instead of in our business. So some examples of urgent and important things I would say are this. In-person client training sessions, right? Which you really don't want to delegate because they hired you to be their coach. And eventually you may get some associate coaches. You may eventually be able to transfer some of those clients over. But for the most part, they're coming to see you. They're coming at 7 a.m. in the morning, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Like, you've got to be there. It's urgent and it's important. So you got to do that, right? But you want to do it well, and you want to do it efficiently, not hurried. You want to be locked in. So hurried is not the same thing as deep work. Right? These are different things. You want to be like on your A game when you're coaching your clients, right? Client calls, like Zoom calls, to make sure that you communicate the right presence here. Things like having good microphones, good cameras, good backgrounds, don't have dirty laundry in the background. Look, I can see right now, I got a little open drawer, just a little bit of an open drawer right there. And now it's bothering me. It's going to bother me through the rest of the podcast. So guilty as charged, right? We want to make sure that we have high quality equipment and we're focused and doing deep work there. Client programming is important. When I'm programming for my clients, I want to make sure that I do it well, I do it right, but I do it efficiently, I do it smooth, it's Pomodoro'd, I'm not getting bored with it and like, oh, let's go check out Instagram Reels or whatever, hop on Twitter or X. at this point, right? And then business admin stuff like accounting, financials, point of sale. I just finished quarterly reports, right? Credit card processing, payables, receivables. Virtually all of this, by the way, can be delegated to Turnkey Coach. That's one of the reasons we built Turnkey Coach, is that we can handle the business admin stuff for you so that you can do the thing that's really important, which is coach and build the relationships with your clients. So these things that are urgent and important must be either scheduled, Pomodoro'd, and worked through with a deep focus with no distractions, or delegated out to those who can do it better, knowing that you're not going to be able to delegate it out at the same cheap wage that you can do for laundry and mowing lawns and whatnot. And that leads us to the not urgent things, but the most important things, right? This is working on your business, not just in your business. So this is actual coaching, actual online coaching, like the human interaction piece, building the trust that we talk about, that Andrew talks about, like building that relationship. And that one thing I would argue is that notice that the flexibility of asynchronous training and coaching moves that out of quadrant 3 and into quadrant 4. It's no longer urgent, but it's highly important. If you coach in person, you have to be there at 7 in the morning or 6 in the morning or 10 in the whatever, right? You have to be there on the schedule. So again, you are in bondage to the schedule. You're in bondage to the location when you're in person, which makes it urgent, but still important. When you move to high quality online coaching, where you're actually still breaking down videos and you're doing things like what we do at Turnkey Coach, it takes it out of the urgent and important and moves it into the non-urgent but important. So now I get to spend all my time building relationships with my clients, building trust, coaching them well without the urgency of having to do it at exactly this time every single day, right? There's still a little bit of urgency there because we always do our breakdowns within 24 hours during the weeks and 48 hours on the weekends. So, if you let that slide a little bit, there's a time where that kind of a ticking time clock, but it's not the same thing as having to be there at that exact time every single day or on the same days every single week. I love that. I think it moves that actual asynchronous online coaching, moves it out of quadrant 3 and into quadrant 4, where it's not urgent, but the most important. And I would say things like marketing your coaching is often not urgent, but very important. We should always be closing, right? Coffee is for closers. We have to market what we do. That's working on the business, not in the business, right? And then, of course, the other things that are so important to your own personal life, your own training, your own physical health, very important, but rarely urgent, right? Your education and becoming a better coach in person, developing expertise in your field, right? The academy, the Barbell Academy is Coaching 101. Great place to start right now. Or just reading great books. Like, these things matter, but they are never urgent. If we live in a constant state of urgency and trying to keep our head above water, we are constantly going to be in bondage to that urgency. And then things like sleep, rest, what some people call Sabbath, right? So what gives us physical and mental health? We need a break sometimes. And if we constantly live in the urgent, we don't ever get to take the break. And so you get exhausted in your bones. Your body needs a break. And so these things are very important. And then I would argue probably the most important thing are things like your family, your faith, your community, these things that build the social, relational, spiritual, and emotional health, like great quality time with your family, your friends, your community, spiritual disciplines, reading great hard books. These things are never going to be urgent, but they are often going to be the most important things that you do in your entire life. And you want to be able to open that up to be able to have the time to do that. So in order to do that quadrant 4 well, the things that are not urgent but most important, we must do the previous 3 quadrants well, which is why I order them that way. By the way, I don't order them from most important to least. It's the opposite, because if you get caught up in the ones that are less important, it'll throw off the thing that's the most important, right? So that, again, a quick overview, that means eliminating non-urgent and non-important work. Get it out of your life. 2, automating or delegating at a cheap wage, urgent but not important work. Again, that's the housework, it's the laundry, it's the mowing, it's the whatever. It's focused undistracted, efficient, deep work of the urgent and important, or delegating to those that you can trust will do it better than you. And so while this is an important quadrant, we want to be consistently more and more efficient at accomplishing this work by eliminating waste, improving value to our clients, and improving the profit to the coach. And then finally, that allows us to spend the majority of our time doing the things that are the most important, but rarely urgent. So from my experience, are often the most fulfilling. So working on the business instead of in it, focusing on our own physical, relational, social, educational, mental, emotional, spiritual health, all of those things that actually matter. Now, don't get caught up in victimhood mentality, right? You shouldn't need a mental health day twice a week to focus on you. If you do so, you need to grow in resilience, but you probably need to get better and more efficient at the first three quadrants. Like that's an effect of, oh, I just need to take another mental health day, coach. No, listen, if you've been one of my clients and you said that's fine, everybody needs that sometimes. I'm not saying you don't ever need that thing, right? I've traveled 7 weeks in a row to Air Force bases. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go down to my cabin for a couple of days with my wife right after I get done recording this. So call that a mental health day. I need it. But I haven't been in my cabin in 2 months, maybe more than that. And so I need that. That's fine. But if you need that 2 days a week, every week, that becomes victimhood mentality, or you are all out of whack on the first three quadrants, right? So focus on that, eliminating the non-urgent, non-important, automating or delegating the cheap wage, urgent, but not important work, focused, undistracted, urgent and important work, or delegate it out to people you trust so that you can focus on the things that matter the most in your life, which is working on the business, not in the business, and focusing on family, faith, community, your physical life, your physical health, the things that you love, things that bring you joy. That's what life is all about. Stop and smell the roses. Like this is when you're in that time of your life like that, you want to be able to enjoy it. I never want to look back at my life and say, I spent my whole life drowning in urgency and not spending my time focused on the important, right? Thanks for listening. This has been another Coaching Success episode on the Barbell Logic podcast. Super excited to bring these to you each week. It's been fun for me to just kind of walk through some of these core value things in my own life and the life of Barbell Logic. I am so grateful for all of you giving us your time. Those of you who are clients, those of you who are Academy students, like it's why we do what we do. And so I hope this is bringing you value. If it does, we'd love a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast. And I'll see you next Friday. See you then.